Hey everyone, it's Aesah. Welcome to my video for Emissary. 4 Emissary is a B tier comp, so it's not quite as good as playing something like Black Rose for the same amount of gold. That's basically what we mean by a tier. That basically, if you hit the exact same amount of upgrades, you're not going to be quite as strong. However, I think this is a really important comp to have in your arsenal because it can use um, melee items specifically on most likely Ambessa, but potentially also on Vi. Because very frequently you might be slamming melee items, something like BT, Titans, potentially Edge of Night, potentially Quicksilver, Sterix Gauge, trying to play Hand of Justice. So like you might be using these kind of items, trying to play something like Violet reroll or Camille reroll, and if you're contested, as you know, I highly do not recommend playing either of those comps contested if you can avoid it. Sometimes you have no choice. But if you have these items and you do end up being contested, you can look to make good use of them with a 4 Emissary board. You don't have to play Vi, but she does fit in pretty well. I think like the most common variation of this I like is you really want one Quick Striker for Ambessa just because a 2 Quick Striker trait gives you up to 60% attack speed, 20 to 60. I kind of think of the average like 40% attack speed, which is insane for a two-piece trait. The quick strikers just honestly aren't that good units, so it's kind of balanced around this two-piece trait being extremely powerful. A lot of times, this also gives you Enforcer with Vi. Um, the only unit that has natural duo synergy with these is Swain, and then that also kind of fits with game playing, who's Form Swapper and will be Pit Fighter with Vi. Swain and GP can both be backline or frontline, just depends what you need more of. One thing to note is every single unit on this entire board functions decently as a carry. So if you have augments such as Lucky Gloves, and you can like Lucky Gloves all of these units, it's going to be really strong. If you have the Radiant item augment, quality over quantity, where you just put one item on each unit, that's going to be really strong with this board as well. But yeah, these gloves are going to be really strong. They're going to be really good on Swain and GP, who you can, if you're paying attention, you can kind of swap based on what items they roll. This is going to be the most common board. It doesn't have to be exactly this though. Another thing you could play potentially is like Echo, who will match with Corki. Corki also gives Artillerist with Tristana, so you get scrap this way. Ambusher, there's not that many amazing ambushers, but if you do have Jinx, you can play her here. And then again, you'll still want a Quick Striker. Quick Striker is still really good here. If you do have Jinx, maybe you could potentially fit in Rebel on 9, but it's not super relevant. But yeah, the main variation, the problem with the variation I was just showing is it kind of doesn't have that much frontline, because in Ambessa, you really don't want to be taking that much aggro. So again, like the main variation as a default board, I like going for this. Your level 9 can be Corki. You'll get both of his traits activated. Um, but you can also just use like any utility unit as well, because again, like you don't really need more just damage carries. Because 4 Emissary is kind of like the primary trait that you're investing most of your resources in on this comp, Ambessa is ideally your main carry here. She really wants Quicksilver. Ambessa is an auto attack unit. She does most of her damage through auto attacking, so the uptime from Quicksilver is really important. She really does want some Omnivamp. She has a little bit in her kit, but having more is really important. So something like Titan's BT is going to be really good. Edge of Knight's going to be good. Sterix is going to be good. If you have extra items or you hit Vi 2, you can always itemize Vi. Vi, on the other hand, unlike Ambessa, she is not an auto attack unit. Almost all of her damage is done through her ultimate, so she doesn't really need Quicksilver. She just needs to be unstunned for like a split second. So she's also going to want Omnivamp as well. Edge of Knight is fine. And then, Sterix, Titans. These are kind of going to be the best items. You can double up on Omnivamp. Yeah. As you're going to do a lot of physical damage, you're going to want Armor Shroud somewhere in the comp. So Last Whisper or Even Shroud. You have some magic damage as well. So Armor Shred, Magic Shred, and Anti-Hero are all good. And itemization backline, you can either go Nami or TF, whoever you upgrade, basically. You can even do Swain, potentially. I think if you have both of them upgraded, I prefer itemizing the Emissary units. The 4 Emissary trait, you kind of have to play these 4 units that don't match each other at all. And Tristana and Nami don't really contribute anything at all. So to compensate for that, the balance of the 4 Emissary trait is extremely, extremely strong. So yeah, you can even itemize Tristana 2-star. Normally, you can't really itemize like a 2. Normally, like the game kind of is not balanced around being able to itemize a 2-star 2 cost into the late game, but Tristana with 4 Emissary, especially if you get Corky in to get a Cannoneer, is actually a pretty good unit. Even without Artillerist. Even without Artillerist, Tristana can be itemized as well. Positioning wise, you don't want your Ambessa or Vi to take too much aggro because they're kind of your carries. Ambessa does have 2 range, so you can put her down here. However, I like to give her the extra HP with Garen. So if you have Edge of Knight, you can on either one of these units. You can put them on the edge, but I don't really like. I would prefer not to have them pop. So you can maybe go something like this, I guess, for example, to kind of protect your carries. You also don't have to greed Garen on one of your carries. So let's say you did a backline like this. You could just do something like this, where maybe on the edge. You don't. Ideally, you give Garen to both Ambessa and Vi, but you definitely don't have to greed it for sure. So you could do something like this. Obviously, like Vi, if she's 2-starred, can actually like drain tank even if they have a carry in the opposite corner. That's gonna wrap it up for this video on 4 Emissary. Again, I think this is a really good comp to having your arsenal because a lot of times if you're trying to play around Camille reroll or Violet reroll and you have these kind of bruiser items and you get contested, this is something you can pivot into. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the Discord if you have any questions.